Hey, I'm Adam Jusko from ProudMoney.com, and in this video we are going to look at the best first credit cards, the best starter credit cards for people that don't have a credit history or maybe have very little credit history and are getting their first credit card. But first I'm going to ask you to please subscribe to this YouTube channel if you have not already. And if you have already, I thank you for doing so. So this is a very common question that people ask. What card should I get if I've never had a credit card before? And I think people ask it over and over again because everyone sort of thinks that their situation is very unique, but there really are sort of like four types of people, I guess I would say, who may be looking for their first credit card. So in this video, I'm going to tell you what those four types are, and you can figure out where you fit in those four types, and then we'll give you some advice on what card might be right for you. So those four types of people who may be looking for their first credit card are: number one, college students; number two, people who are not in college but are younger, say under 30, so late teens up until around age 30. Number three is international people who are in the US, whether that is someone that has come from another country as an older adult or an international student. And then number four is older people from the US who, for whatever reason, have not had a credit card before, or maybe it's been so long since they had a credit card that it almost is like they're starting over. All right, let's start with that first group, college students. When you are in college, many of the major banks want to get that first credit card into your hands. They want to kind of get it on the ground floor with you. They assume that when you graduate, get that diploma, you are going to start making more money and continue to make more and more money as you get older. And so they see this as a great time to try and build some brand loyalty for you, meaning that there are multiple issuers of the big banks that have college student specific credit cards out there that you probably can get yourself approved for. The best of the lot, in my opinion, the Bank of America Cash Rewards card, a no annual fee card that gives you cash back as your reward, 3% in a category of your choosing from a number of purchasing categories that Bank of America gives you, 2% back on grocery and wholesale club purchases, 1% back everywhere else. There's even a bonus on this card. At least as I make this video, you could earn an extra $200 if you could spend $1,000 on that card in the first 3 months that you have it. So that is a very good student card. It basically mimics the sort of mainstream card for older adults that Bank of America offers. It has the exact same name. So there are other student cards to look at too. Discover has a good student card, Capital One, Chase, Wells Fargo, and there are others out there as well. So a number of choices if you want to get started and get your first card while you're in college. Great time to do it. All right, so that next group then is people who are sort of younger adults who are not in college or maybe are out of college but didn't get a credit card when they were in college. So anywhere from like age 18 to around 30, if you are in there and you are not in college and you're looking for your first credit card, a big part of the equation is going to be how much income do you have. So if you are someone that is working full-time and you are making, maybe $25,000 or more as a full-time employee somewhere, well, then your options are going to be better than someone who is working part-time and, making less than that amount. Now, that's sort of a vague amount that I'm using there, but I'm thinking about someone who is working full-time making, $12.50, $15 an hour, something along those lines. So if that is you, you are going to have an easier time, especially if you don't have like outrageous housing costs or you didn't just buy a new Dodge Charger or whatever the case might be. So if you're someone that is making some decent money, then you can go to a couple of the credit card issuers, and I think you would have a good chance of being approved for your first card. In particular, the two cards I am thinking of, number one is the Capital One Quicksilver, number two is the Discover It card. Both Capital One and Discover are known to work with people that maybe have less of a credit history, maybe a little more lenient in terms of who they approve. So if you have some income and your housing costs aren't crazy, or you don't have other, crazy expenses, well, then these are two companies that I think would consider giving you that first credit card. All right, now if by chance both Capital One and Discover reject you, probably the next place I would look are two cards that are sort of designed for people that are trying to get their first credit card. One of them is the Pedal credit card, the other is the Jasper MasterCard. So the Pedal card and Jasper both use sort of a technology where they look at your bank account to see what's coming in and what's going out and sort of decide on your card application. That way, even if you don't necessarily have any sort of credit history or credit score. Now, what that means is they sort of use a third-party technology company that gives them read-only access, so they can see what's happening in your bank account, but they can't, actually go in and do anything to your bank account. So it's really a way for them to try and gauge how much money you have coming in and how much is going out because of the fact that you don't have a credit history. So anyway, those two companies are ones that are a decent place to look at as well because of the fact that they know you don't have a credit history coming in and they don't see that as a bad thing. That is the audience that they are serving. Now, another option here, if you've been rejected by those 4 banks, or maybe even before you go to those 4 banks, is to think about whether you have an existing banking relationship with a bank that offers credit cards, where maybe you could go into a branch and talk to someone who you could apply with in person. So if you have been using the same bank for 5 years or whatever, and you have a history now with having a checking account or a savings account or whatever, well, then going into that bank and trying to get your first credit card that way is a good option. Same thing if you are a member of a credit union, or if you have the ability to be a member of a credit union. They are potentially also going to work harder to try and get you that first card versus going to a Capital One or Discover or one of these other companies and just trying to get that card cold without having any sort of relationship. All right, now if you've done all that and you still don't have that first credit card, this is when I would say you should probably go the secured credit card route. So a secured credit card is essentially the same as any other credit card that you might think of, except you have to put down a security deposit in order to get it. So you put down $200 or $500 or whatever in order to get the card. That is refundable money. When you no longer want the card or no longer need the card, you would get that money back. But you put down that money as sort of a safety for the bank. You get the credit card, you use it just like any other credit card. You make your purchases, you pay it off each month. You don't pay it off with that money you put aside. That's your security deposit. You pay it off with your regular funds that you would any other credit card. And then when you are either graduated to an unsecured card, meaning that the bank decides that they trust you well enough to give you that security deposit back, that would be one way you get your money back. Or if you just decide you don't want the card anymore, you would tell the bank that and they would send that money back to you and close out your account. So this is the way that many people do get their first credit card. I think if you are someone that is making a good income, you probably don't need to start with a secured card unless, like I said, everybody else was rejecting you. Now, if you do go that secured card route, a couple cards to think about: the Bank of America Cash Rewards secured card, just like that Bank of America student card I talked about, except you have to put a security deposit down, or at least very similar to that Bank of America student card we talked about. Discover also has a secured card that is a good secured card, and Discover is known to be perhaps the most generous in graduating you up to an unsecured card in the shortest amount of time, meaning that you put that security deposit down, and if you use the card correctly, make all your payments on time, you're doing what you're supposed to do with that card, oftentimes in less than a year, Discover is going to graduate you to an unsecured card. You would get that security deposit back. No guarantees that that is going to happen, but that is the reputation that Discover has. All right, now I said that chunk of advice right there was for younger adults who are making sort of a full-time income. Now, if you are someone that is in that same age group, somewhere between 18 and 30, but maybe you only have part-time income, you're not going to be quite as attractive to the credit card companies. The advice isn't necessarily a whole lot different, other than maybe your expectations should be different in terms of what you might get. Again, I would say go to your local bank if you have a banking relationship already. If you have a few years under your belt with a local bank and they offer a credit card, go into the branch and perhaps see if that is the way for you to get that first card. Otherwise, maybe again, you would try Capital One and Discover. However, in this case, what I would probably tell you to do is use their pre-approval or pre-qualification forms that they have on their websites to see what they might offer you before you go ahead and sort of do a full application, because they will look at you and tell you, here's what you're probably going to get approved for based on what we know about you, or at least based on what you are telling us about you. And so in that way, you won't go and apply for things that you don't have any hope of getting, and you might not be able to qualify for that Capital One Quicksilver or the regular Discover It card if you don't have a whole lot of income. Now, if you got no love from those options, you might still try the Pedal card or the Jasper MasterCard, but in my view, those cards are a little more tailored to people that maybe don't have a credit history, but have a little more income. So if you don't have a whole lot of income and you're trying to get that first card, I don't know if Pedal or Jasper would be the way to go. And of course, then we've talked about secured cards, which can be a good option to build your credit and a good place to get that first credit card. I also will throw in here the idea of perhaps getting your first credit card from a retail store. Retail store cards can be a way to build your credit if you don't have a whole lot of income. So, things like Walmart, Target, JCPenney, The Gap, there are all sorts of store credit cards out there. The downside to them is usually small credit lines, and usually you're only going to be able to use them at that one particular store if you don't really have a credit history. So there are things like the Walmart MasterCard that you can use at Walmart and anywhere MasterCard is accepted, but if you don't have a credit history, oftentimes they're going to give you their store card that is only good at Walmart. So this can be a way to help you build a credit history. It can be a way to get you your first credit card, but it's not necessarily a way that you're going to get a card that you're going to be able to use widely. All right, that third group of people that might be looking for their first credit card are people that are coming to the US for the first time, either to work or to study. If you have a job in the US but you came from another country and you have a decent income, that Jasper MasterCard again is one that I would think you would want to take a look at. Now, the card mentions itself as one sort of open to everyone with no credit history, but the origins of that company actually are to help people that were coming to the US for the first time that maybe have a good job, knew they were going to have some good income here in the US, but the big banks wouldn't give them credit because they didn't have any credit history here in the United States. So that Jasper MasterCard, that is sort of their background, and that is definitely who they have been looking for in the past as an audience. They've just widened who that audience is that they might accept. So definitely take a look there. Now, if you are an international student, you've come from another country into the United States as a student, the Deserve Student Card is one that says you do not even need to have a social security number necessarily to get your hands on that card. So that is definitely one that I would take a look at. As a student, it might be harder. As an international student, it might be harder for you to get a credit card here otherwise, so definitely I would say to look there first. All right, and then finally, let's talk about older adults that are trying to get their first credit card, or maybe they had a credit card a very long time ago, close it out, and then haven't had one for 20, 30 years, or whatever the case might be. So I'm thinking of people that are 30 plus, and obviously that is a very wide-ranging group. But when you get to be a little older, 30 plus, you are more likely to have some more experience under your belt and perhaps some more income that you are making right now too. And so even though you don't have a credit history, you might be more attractive to a lot of the credit card companies. So if you are making a little more income, if you have had some banking relationships, maybe you've even had an auto loan or a mortgage in your past, well, then you're going to be more attractive to some of these companies that maybe would not be as willing to give that first credit card to someone that was a little bit younger. So in your case, if you sort of meet those criteria, if you do have a little more income, you do have some experience, especially if you've had a car loan or a mortgage, well, then that is when I would say go after whatever credit card you want. If you see a credit card you want, try it out. Having that experience might make a bank give you a chance where maybe they would not give a chance to a younger person. Now, if you did that 2 or 3 times and you got rejected all over the place, go back to my other advice for people that were younger. Go to Cap One, go to Discover, that sort of thing, and just keep working until you're able to get one. But having a little more experience under your belt, a little more banking experience, if you've had loans before, any of those things are going to look better to a credit card issuer, and so you definitely should try to get whatever you can and sort of have that experience be something that you use to your benefit. All right, I think at least loosely I have covered every possible situation why you might be trying to get your first credit card, but if somehow you have fallen through the cracks, or if you just have other questions about getting your first credit card, put those in that comment section below. Otherwise, I thank you for watching. And as always, please go to proudmoney.com where we do credit card reviews, talk personal finance, talk deals, and all sorts of other fun stuff too. Thanks for watching. Bye.